But something about that image and the way it was portrayed in the media woke me. Or was it that image? Was it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You make your decisions when you've heard my story, please. Something awoke in me. Why? The voiceover from the BBC appeared to say, look at that lovely Israeli tank bearing down on that wicked Arab Muslim urchin. This was after Tiananmen Square. I knew that tanks were bad, unarmed civilians and children good. This is how life works. Big army against big army bad, going against civilians bad, civilians fighting for freedom good. But no, not in the case of this place I barely knew, Gaza, and these people, Palestinians, who I'd never heard of very much. So in 2005, I managed to get myself a commission from my newspaper to go and interview Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah. I went on my own, not knowing what to expect. But I did have some preconceptions that I took with me, which is funny as a socialist, because I didn't know I had them until I was on the plane to Tel Aviv. And on the plane to Tel Aviv, I realized I was scared of Arabs. Pretty scared of Arabs. Arabs with guns were really going to be frightening. And Arab Muslims with guns in the West Bank, where everybody was terrorists, what was I doing? I wanted to go home. I kind of hoped the Israelis would just deport me. I heard they do that. But nobody did. It wasn't what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had planned. So I took a taxi to Ramallah. And I realized on that taxi ride that I had what we can call a mild form, at least, of Islamophobia. I thought everyone was terrorists. I didn't know anything about women in hijabs. I didn't know anything about Islam. And here I was going to terrorist enclave, Palestine, the Palestinian territories run by terrorists in the enclave of terrorism. So imagine how I felt the next day, going up in a big metal lift with huge Palestinian guards around me with their guns and their walkie-talkies. And I'll never forget that scene. It replays sometimes in my mind. There's me standing there, huge Fatah gunmen, as they're called on CNN. They're guards for the president. Everybody has them. Get over it. And I'm standing there, and one of them says this, Bukra, bukra, yalla, 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 inshallah. Habibi, yalla, habibi. And I think to myself, subtitle, we'll behead the white woman later. This is what I heard. This is what I was hearing every time they spoke. I thought, I've seen this movie and it doesn't end well for the white woman. It's not good. What am I doing here? It took me a little while, maybe about 5 days in the West Bank, for all of that to be gone. I was walking down a road the next day in Ramallah without a coat. The Israelis had kept my luggage, as they do when they find out you're going to the West Bank. It's very common. So I only had a kind of shirt on, and I was walking around going, wow, look at this place. And an old lady said, yalla, 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 yalla. And she took me into her house and put her arm around mine. And she said, showed me a wardrobe full of clothes. Looked at them and took out a coat, put it on my back, got out a little suitcase, got out some jumpers. She said, Habibti, yalla. And wrote down her address. I said, what is this? I've never encountered such instant generosity to a stranger. And that wasn't all. Everywhere I walked, hello, how are you? Salam alaikum. The fallback position I was beginning to realize for the Palestinian people, Muslims and Christians, I will never forget that there are Christians in the West Bank and Gaza, enormous, any of us here. But their fallback position is the same. You're welcome. You're our friend. If you come in peace to a Muslim area that is under attack, wherever you are from, you are with us and we will take care of you. That was the message I was getting. And it was starting to break down what I knew about Islam, or thought I knew. In 2007, I went to Lebanon to see the damage wrought by Israel. I'm not going to go into politics, but this is my life, so I'll tell it how I like. I went to see the damage wrought by Israel. As a journalist, I went to write about it. And I was going to be met at the airport by two representatives of a certain political Lebanese party whose name I'm not allowed to mention here. And I presumed that the representatives of this party would be men, big beards, big turbans, big cloaks. So imagine my surprise at Beirut airport when two funky young women in tight tops that went down to their knees and jeans and hijabs turned up and said, "Salam alaikum," with an attitude that was kind of like Beverly Hills meets the hijab. You know? And I was grilling them over the next 48 hours because I'd never spoken to a woman in a hijab before. And I said, "So what's your life like? Is anybody, I suppose, forced to marry?" And they looked at me like I was crazy. Nobody's forcing us to do anything we don't want to. This is Beirut, baby. But we love our dad, and if he asks us, we'll do what he says because we love him. All of that freedom, followed by the respect for the family, is what I was seeing. And it was very interesting. They were studying to a high level. They were going to do what they wanted with their lives, but they loved their religion, and they loved their country, and they loved their faith. A new world was opening up to me, one I hadn't seen. Not only one I hadn't seen, but one that had been misrepresented to me from the day I first watched a television newscast. So we went down south, me and the two women called Zainab, and we eventually did meet, alhamdulillah, a sheikh with the turban and the beard and the cloak. And in my mind, I still carried that prejudice about Islam very strongly. I thought, it's fine for these young girls to be all, we can do what we want in Beirut. But in Bint Jbail, in front of a sheikh, I must keep my faculties sharp and remember that Islam oppresses women. And I'm going to watch this. I'm not going to be foolish and led by my heart. I'm going to watch what the interaction is between these people. Now, at one point, one of these young women was translating, and the sheikh was talking quite quickly, and she did this. She put her hand up politely and went, "Sorry, sheikh, 1 second. Lauren, what he's trying to say is..." And I thought, here comes the whip. I thought, this is really going to be bad for her. What is this guy going to do? He's number 3 in that party that I'm not allowed to mention. This can't be good. And do you know what that sheikh did to that young woman? I'll tell you, it was outrageous. He did this. "Okay, sister, carry on." I looked and I thought, that's it? Really? No whips, no stoning to death? That was it. So what did I take from that? There was a humility about learned people in Islam, or there could be, and there can be, and there is. And that women do make choices, they can do. And they do, in Islam. It was another prejudice broken down. But I was definitely not on the road to being a Muslim. I was just learning about the Middle East, right? This wasn't my road. I was drinking alcohol, I was enjoying my life. Alhamdulillah, I've always been a happy person. One of my best friends calls me Miss Upside. She sends me texts, "How's life on the upside today?" I've always been one of those people that, you crash your car, you split up with your husband, everything goes wrong, but I had a really good poached egg today. My friends laugh about it, but I can't help it. I went to Gaza, and that changed my life. It really did. Anybody who has any interest in Palestine should really go there, because just go there. And I went with the Free Gaza movement in 2008 on a boat, and we made it. We actually made it. The first people in 41 years to sail from the outside world to the coast of Palestine. Can you imagine how that felt? And I wasn't even thinking about it. Something in me was just making these decisions. People were saying, "You could die, it doesn't matter, I can't let people live like that." You could get attacked. It doesn't matter. There's kids starving. Haven't you seen the news? Don't you understand? Every single person, there were 46 people on 2 boats. Only 3 of them Muslim. Not because the Muslims weren't interested in going, but because we wanted to make a statement that white people care, and also we were less likely to die if we weren't, guess what, Turkish and Muslim. Think about it. Think about what happened later on. So we sent white people from Europe and America, people who wanted